Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we've got a first look for both a night map in Battlefield 5 and the first time we get to see and play Rush in Battlefield 5. This is available to play right now. It came out today with the Tides of War content update. This is the new Grand Operation featuring Panzerstorm and then Eros. Now, day 1 is Airborne, where you paratroop out at nighttime. Day 2 is during the day, and it's a breakthrough game mode with lots of armor on it, like a crazy amount of armor. And then day 3 changes to Eros, and it is Rush on Eros. So it's a completely new way to play Eros. There's a decent amount of armor on it and MCOMs that you arm and have to destroy. There's also some new weekly challenges that will help you rank up your chapter rank, in addition to unlocking a Valentine Archer tank at the end of the progression tree. I haven't done it yet, although I imagine it performs similarly to the Stug 4, which is what we unlocked last week. Now, if I'm being totally honest, when I heard that DICE was doing a nighttime version of Panzerstorm, I was not excited at all because I didn't enjoy the nighttime maps in Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 4. I thought they were just too darn dark in both games. They brightened them up a little bit in Battlefield 1, but they also presented players with a really poor choice when it came to their gameplay performance and aesthetics. Basically, if you increase the brightness in Battlefield 1, you could see everybody in the map, no problem. It looked very ugly, it didn't look right, but by just cranking up the brightness, you could see all the enemies in the dark areas. If you didn't mess with the brightness, it looked much better, much more authentic as a nighttime map, but you couldn't see anything and you were at a massive disadvantage. I resented that choice in Battlefield 1, and I thought they were going to make the same mistakes with Battlefield 5. I mean, considering how many things have gone with this game, it wouldn't have surprised me, but I gotta say I am actually pleasantly surprised that the nighttime map here is quite bright. I didn't have to adjust my brightness settings at all. I can see enemies pretty well. It's still a little bit more sneaky beaky than a daytime map for sure. The muzzle flash on certain weapons does obstruct your visibility a little bit when you're trying to ADS and shoot, so you might want to pick different weapons if you're used to full auto weapons that have lots of muzzle flash and stuff like that. It might make it harder to shoot and see your enemies. I was really enjoying the semi-auto assault rifles here. I mean, I generally enjoy the semi-auto assault rifles a lot, but I felt like they were particularly well suited for the nighttime map. Now, of course, what is a DICE update without the usual array of bugs? And this time around, the bugs are actually quite usual, like we've seen them all before. The Tides of War assignments will lag your game every time you complete one. Fortunately, it only happens when you complete these assignments, and there's a finite amount of assignments, so it's not a permanent thing that you're gonna be bothered with, but just expect to see a bunch of lag when you do accomplish the assignments in game. The weird situation in co-op where there's no sound at the start of one of your co-op missions has transferred itself over to the new Grand Operation, which is weird. Just not hearing any voiceover, any music, any ambient noise, anything like that. So I don't know what's going on. Like, did the sound team quit or get moved over to a different project? Is there just some weird bug that DICE hasn't been able to figure out? But so both co-op and the new Grand Operations are lacking sound at the start. Not a huge issue, but it is kind of awkward. I noticed on day 2 of the new Grand Operation that the out of bounds area doesn't clearly define itself when you get pushed back from one point to another. So I was driving back, retreating in a vehicle, and it just exploded and said I died for deserting, except it gave me no countdown timer or out of bounds indicator. So that's a bit disappointing. That could be a bug in other Grand Operation modes as well. This is just the first time I've experienced it. Now, bugs aside, I actually really like the new Grand Operations. It's not to say that it's perfectly balanced or that it couldn't use some tweaking. I think it's definitely got some issues with it, but it is, as far as I can tell, really the only place in Battlefield 5 right now that offers focused tank-on-tank combat. Panzerstorm before offered it in more of an open conquest format, which is fun, and you could get a few tanks shooting each other at once. Sometimes you get a 2v2 going. This second day here gives you an intense breakthrough mode where it's like 5 tanks on 5 tanks. It might be more. I think it might be like 7 tanks on 7 tanks. And things get crazy. I feel bad for infantry, to say the least. They all have to try and capture a point in the center with tons and tons of armor raining shells down on them. It's probably not the most fun map for infantry, but if you like driving a tank or you want to rank up your tanks, this is the place to do it. I got my Stug ranked up to 4 very quickly. I'm starting to work on the Churchill gun carrier, and this will be the place to rank up the new Valentine archer tank as well. I did see a few of them on the battlefield, but it takes a little while to unlock that tank, so you'll probably start seeing more and more pop up today and tomorrow. Now, there's sort of a con that comes with pitting all these tanks against each other, and that kind of forces players to have to deal with the fact that tank combat isn't very good in Battlefield 5. It's been better in just about every single Battlefield game prior to this. Tanks shoot each other like 7, 8, 9 times before they go down. If you have reppers behind your tank, you can basically make your opponent shoot off every single round that they have before they can kill you. They can't kill you sometimes even if they hit every single shot they have on you, and that's pretty disappointing. Tank combat needs a lot of balance. There's many different areas that need work. For example, just the bobbing and the motion of the tanks. It becomes very hard to move and shoot accurately in most tanks. These huge lumbering multi-ton beasts go over terrain like they're dune buggies half the time, and it just feels awkward and unnatural and unrealistic. There should be the ability to consistently make accurate shots while having your tank on the move. In addition to that, the tanks, again, just slug each other out. There doesn't seem to be a huge skill curve in tank combat. Mostly aim for the enemy tank's turrets, but still they have so much health that usually they can get behind cover even if they do something stupid. And I kind of miss the days of being able to disable an enemy tank and take them out if they made a mistake. I mean, that's really what tanks need to be able to do, is sort of get a good lucky shot on there, disable a tank, take them out so they can't get behind cover. That kind of combat was more fun in previous Battlefield games, and now it just feels like, oh, it's going to take me like 3 or 4 shots to really disable a tank. They all have quick repair, they all have smoke, they can easily get away from harm if they're taking fire, and a repper can now keep them alive pretty much indefinitely. A repper can just make you chew away all your ammo when fighting another tank, and so it just really isn't a fun experience fighting tank-on-tank combat right now, and I think DICE is going to have to address that in the near future, especially now that these new game modes have given us so much tank-on-tank combat. The bright side for tank drivers is that tanks seem less incentivized to fight each other, and you can just focus on mopping up infantry all day, and your primary cannons now do increase splash damage to infantry, so you can absolutely farm kills in a tank. Again, this is not good game balance, but if you find yourself in a decent tank, you can do some real damage. Now, as for Rush on Eros, I like it. I think it's a good mode. There's definitely some big wide open areas, and then it gets closer down in the city of Eros. It's similar to how Breakthrough plays out a little bit, but it does have a distinct difference in that you're arming MCOMs and you don't have to capture 2 points simultaneously. If your team makes a great effort, arms an MCOM and destroys it, but then you get wiped out and pushed back, well, you've still made some progress. You don't have to worry about taking out 2 MCOMs anymore. Now you just have to worry about the 1 remaining MCOM. And the subtle formula difference between Rush and Breakthrough, I think, is actually more enjoyable in Rush now that we've put them side by side. Ultimately, I didn't think there was a huge difference between them, and there really isn't, but subtleties when comparing them side by side, since I've played so much Breakthrough on Eros and now I'm playing Rush, I think I like Rush better. I just enjoy it better. It's easier to read the game mode and it's kind of less frustrating. what happens so much in Breakthrough is your team will capture 1 point, and then everybody on that point will move over to the other point to try and cap that as well. Nobody will stay behind, and the point you just capped gets capped by the enemy team. So you just dance back and forth between A and B because you have this sort of dumb team mob mentality. That's never going to change in Battlefield. You're always going to have stupid teams and mob mentality. The more you can avoid those situations, the better, and Rush does a good job of avoiding that, because once you take out an MCOM, there's no point in going to that location anymore. So the team naturally gravitates towards the next objective and plays the way it should play. Oh yeah, and I'm running the Churchill gun carrier here. This tank is stupidly good on this game mode. I'm sure the Archer will be good as well. The Stug was fun to play with, but the Churchill gun carrier just has insane armor, insane range, insane damage, and just because it's kind of slow, cumbersome, and doesn't have a turret that turns around, doesn't really matter too much on Breakthrough, because you don't have to worry about your flanks. You just worry about what's in front of you, and the gun carrier is perfect for that. Now, I think one of the lesser balanced areas of the new Grand Operation mode is Day 2, the first objective. There's a single point to capture, there's like 7 tanks on either side, and there's some buildings on the capture point, but those buildings get destroyed in like half a second. And then there's just a bunch of infantry running around trying to dodge splash damage from like a billion tanks on either side. It's an absolute nightmare to try and play infantry there. Plus, there's not a lot of great cover, so snipers are picking you off as I'm doing right here. I think this area of the map needs some better cover, and not cover that you build, because tanks blow up that cover in 2 seconds. You know, putting in an advanced trench network and whatever really isn't going to do all that much with the new tank splash damage. So I think DICE needs to sort of relook at that first point a bit more, because out of all the games I played, a bunch of them just got stuck on that first point there and nothing progressed past it. Anyway, I'll be working on getting my Valentine Archer unlocked to test that out, see if it offers any sort of meaningful difference over the Churchill gun carrier, which is already incredibly good at its specific task. It's nice to finally see the Panzerstorm map being used in different ways. It was great on Conquest. I'm one of the people who really enjoys Panzerstorm, so now that I'm seeing it in different game modes, it's fun, but it definitely needs a little bit of tweaking. It's one of the only maps in Battlefield 5 that really reminds me of a core classic Battlefield experience. So the more we can integrate this map into different server rotations and queues, the better in my opinion. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Try out the new Tides of War weekly assignments for yourself in the new Grand Operation, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.